Welcome to the Shadow Archives, a fan-led show dedicated to the world of Sarah Samuel's Blade of Shadows. I'm your host, Matt from Ohio, and I'm joined by my co-hosts from around the world. We have Miss Tam from Australia, Miss Sam from England, Ms. Louise from Denmark, Mr. Patrick from North Carolina, and Ms. Lisa from Northern Virginia. In last week's episode, the quasi-romance turned into full-blown enemies again after the Emperor's birthday party when Olivia discovered that Roman's been concealing a huge part of himself from her, even though she's been concealing a huge part of herself from him. But in today's episode, Olivia's silent treatment will continue all the way to Scotland. But don't you worry none, because it's not going to be silent forever. And it's going to get steamy up there. So today we're diving into chapters 22 through 31 of Timeborne. And with that, the archives are officially reopened. We rejoin our story in chapter 22 as Olivia and Amara board a ship to sail to Scotland and war. They are kept below decks amongst the other women and the prostitutes that are following the army. And they're on this ship for a while, but about a week into the voyage, their life is rudely interrupted by a naval battle, which we know about because Olivia bravely goes above deck where she's prohibited from being. Meanwhile, while they're trapped below decks, Roman is shackled to the Emperor for the entire voyage, making sure his every whim is cared for, sexually or otherwise. And Roman, though, turns down all the hoes the Emperor is offering him because he's super heartsick over Olivia. But eventually they make it to Scotland, where Olivia has a hissy fit when Roman inquires after how she is. And rather than lash out in return, Roman gives Olivia and Amara horses to ride to camp. Isn't that nice? And on the ride to camp, wherever camp's going to be, nobody knows, Olivia begins wondering if Roman is a time traveler. Like, she's just now putting this pieces together in her head. And she's also wondering what else the man has lied about. Because if a man lies about one thing, we lie about everything. That's a pretty universal truth. And she also wonders if Amara is a complicit time traveler with Roman or if she's completely innocent. Speaking of Roman, this entire time, he futilely tries to talk to Olivia, who continues her petulant silent treatment. But eventually they arrive at a place suitable for camp, and the soldiers begin erecting the camp. And being a healer, Amara and Olivia pitch their tent in the center of the soldiers' camp. And that's where we rejoin our story today. So before we get into the interesting part of our story, I would like to open our conversation with two related questions. The first question is, if you were on this voyage, would you rather be one of the worker bee women stuck below decks, one of the soldiers whose life is constantly imperiled, or do you want to be one of the hoes who, I guess, enough said. And the second question is, how do you think you would do on that boat ride?
Okay, no, because you see, I try and think logically, but at the same time, I try and think realistically. So it's like, because I'd like to be a soldier, because at the end of the day, like, I'm just thinking about the best case scenario. They get fed, they get to see the light, all that sort of stuff. But also, if it's in the Roman mythology times and like Roman everything, I feel like I don't think I could handle being a soldier. Because again, it's kind of like what Severus like kind of always kind of thinks it's weird that like Roman would fuck all the other girls and things like that. So it's like, I feel like I don't want to be one of the soldiers that they're like trying to be like, oh, do you want this woman? Do you want this one? Do you want this one? I feel like I try to be like one of the worker women, one of the ones that are just kind of there. You know, I feel like they get a bit hungry, which is fair enough. But I feel like at the end of the day, they're at least like pretty safe. And also when they get to the war, they're pretty safe because they don't have to fight in the battle. Well, wait till my chapter. But you know, most of the worker women are pretty safe and sound as long as they're kind of just doing what needs to be done and like are healers and all that sort of stuff. So like logically, I want to be a healer, and realistically, I think that's probably the only sort of category I could go under because I don't think I'd be able to like fool them as a soldier. You know,
Mhm.
I've only just started going to the gym. Give me a couple more months. You know.
I think I actually have to agree with everything Ten just said. It's the same that goes through my head. Definitely not gonna be a soldier. So no, it just doesn't fit my personality type and the way I see the world. And so no, and no, yeah, it's gonna be a working woman.
Is everybody in agreement with what Tam said?
Yes.
Yeah. All right, devil's advocacy. Let's go. All right. I'm going to choose to be a hoe.
All
I
right.
partially thought that as well.
Yeah.
And the reason I
glad
say
you were
I'm going to
saying
choose
that.
to be a hoe is not because I'm all about that hoe life. It's because I feel as though I would like to think of myself as idealistic, and being a hoe would give me the most access to these people to just take them out and try to right some wrongs. That's my devil's advocate explanation.
I was actually kind of leaning that same way, only because it's above the ship. I've been below ship before. I'm okay. I would like to have some fresh air, especially during the Roman times. I can only imagine
I
the stench down below deck.
I get seasick, so I'd have probably chosen her as well, because I don't want to be downstairs. I don't want to be
We're-
underneath where I can't see things. I want to be somewhere where I can just throw my head over
Oh,
the
you'll
side
see
and
things.
yeah. But also, like you said, the smell. I couldn't think of anything worse than smelling like they were talking about
Everything.
dead bodies and piss and. Ugh. Yeah.
Yeah, I've done the soldier thing before. Yeah. If those were my three options, yeah, I'd hoe it up. Don't put that on there, please.
I will work a woman because I have to have something to do all the time. I can't just sit there and do nothing. What's the saying? The devil makes work for idle thumbs. If I don't do something, I'm gonna wreak havoc somewhere.
Yeah.
Wait, what nice
know,
questions to begin on. Yeah, thanks, Matt.
You're welcome. Y'all are very welcome. I had this conversation with my wife separately already.
And what did she choose?
She told me I was an idiot, and then I talked at her. So when I say we had the conversation, I had the conversation, and she sat there. So
Yeah. She didn't even dignify the question. Yeah.
no. But yeah, on a reread, I feel like the only thing that really stuck out to me in this particular reading is I didn't realize that Olivia and Amara have their healer tent and whatever in the center of the soldiers' camp. I guess I always kind of pictured it as being over yonder that Roman had to like sneak to with extra effort. But no, it's right there in the middle, which makes sense because the soldiers have to go find it to get healed, right?
Yeah, and it needs to be safe.
It's the most protected.
I thought it was there was descriptions of it being on the outskirts of the soldiers thing in the first version.
Yeah.
I think it's slowly shifted internally, but I'm not. Sorry, my dog's just about to roll off the fucking chair. Yeah, I'm not sure if it was described as being on the outskirts.
Olivia's being kind of a pain, but Amara's desire for getting the band back together, it's not going too well. So she decides to take matters into her own hands.
Icon.
All right. So Roman enters the Oscar race, and he is going on. He goes back and forth with Amara, just like we just said. Amara is bent on making sure they get together, and Amara just says, "Hey, you need to do this shit or get off the pot." And he's like, "Well, maybe." So she sets it up. She plays the matchmaker. She says, "Well, I'll make sure she comes to the tent. I'll make sure she's alone, and then I'll come get you." So then, obviously, Roman goes back to the tent, his tent, and he's just walking back and forth. And he's just, I can't wait. Amara and Olivia comes into the healer's tent, and she says, "Oh, I'm just so tired." And then Amara says, "Oh, wait here. I'll go get something for you." And then, of course, she goes and gets
Something
Roman.
indeed.
Roman is something indeed, yes. So then Roman comes in, and he's very quiet at the back of the tent, and she's standing there, and he's just in awe of her beauty, with all the dirt and the sweat and everything that else comes with being on a battlefield. And then she opens the door. "Can you just unbraid my hair, Amara?" And he's like, "Oh, well, there's my open door." So he goes over and he gently says who she is, or says it's him, and she doesn't do anything. She just sits there, and then he tries to win her back. And all of a sudden, and I'm going to kind of combine both of these chapters, 22 and 23. And then all of a sudden, or 23 and 24, I think, whatever. Anyway, the two that I have. And then all of a sudden, Roman Alexander is heard, because he's trying to tell Olivia who he is, that he knows who she was, and he doesn't want to keep any secrets from her anymore. And there's just all of this out there, and now he's got to figure out what this is. And obviously, it's Marcellious, pew pew pew, playing the cockblock game. So he goes over to see Marcellious. Marcellious is like, "Oh, well, who were you with?" And "You were with her, weren't you?" "Well, who do you mean who I was with?" And there's that banter back and forth. "Well, if she were in my tent, she'd already be pregnant by now." Well, let me tell you what's happening to me. I just got promoted to, I can't remember what it was, some pure something Praetorian, I think is what it was. The highest rank of the Legion. And Roman's like, "Well, wait a second. That's supposed to be my position." He goes, "Well, Severus is pretty easy to manipulate when he's in the throes of orgasms with the hose." So, which a lot of men are very agreeable to a lot of things during that time. So, but
Truth.
yes, yeah, truth. So he goes on, and basically Marcellius says, "Well, guess what? Instead of you being with the top-notch unit, you're going to take on the prisoners that we captured, and you get to train them to be Roman soldiers." And Roman's like, "But I've got Olivia back in the tent, and I got to go talk to her. I have to tell her I love her." And he realizes that he can't. So now he's in the conundrum of, "Well, I hope she stays around and waits on me, but now I've got to go train these numbskulls." And the first thing he does, he takes them on an 18-mile march, which is no fun whatsoever. But he spends time ripping them up. Oh, and I forgot about this, because when he found out that he was being replaced, he beat up a tree. So it all comes down to the fact that he gets these prisoners up to speed, and he goes back to Olivia. Primus Pilus. There we go. That was the actual part. So the things that I kind of saw in here is there's a couple of things. Number one, he still felt responsible for Olivia, which is a little bit later in the chapter, because Olivia, to remind her that he wanted to make sure that he needed to make sure that Olivia hadn't forgotten about him, or that he had not forgotten about her. That it was still fighting for her, even if it felt like the whole world was against both of them. the 2 chapters were just kind of littered with a whole bunch of different uh, things of looking back to how they're supposed to be together. I did look up the name Severus because that's what we're real good about with this group. So the name Severus, meaning it's obviously Latin in origin, translates directly to stern, severe, and grave. Evoked qualities of strict discipline and seriousness and inner strength, which is a bit opposite of this particular Severus, who is all about gluttony and opulence. So he may sound big and bad. He may sound like, well, I'm going to make sure I can take her whatever I want. But every time we see, he's knee deep in other stuff. The training that he puts the prisoners through sounded pretty typical. Talked about all the armor. Time was it's interesting because I was trying to figure out how. I understand Roman is from England, and I'm sure they had watches at that time, but in Rome, I don't think they carried a sundial, on the wrist, because he talks about how it had taken them over 2 hours, and which was a disgrace for them to finish that march. And for him to know that it was exactly over 2 hours is kind of interesting. So that was one of the things I kind of thought was funny. But overall, it was pretty decent 2 chapters.
Yeah, I thought Sara did a really good job. Like, Severus was the emperor in real history at that time, and he did in fact try to invade Scotland, and he failed. But of course, with marketing, the Roman Empire was like, it was our choice to turn back, but really he went there for a year, got his ass kicked, and was forced out of Scotland. So there's a Sam, can you help me out here? There's a wall up there that kind of separates Scotland
Hadrian's
from.
Wall.
Yeah, that was my understanding in Latin history, Roman history. That was about as far north as the Roman army ever made it, and that's part of why the wall exists. Am I accurate? Am I wrong?
Something to that effect. It was. Bear with me a second. I'm gonna try and find it.
And then I think Emperor Severus does in fact die, like only a year or two after they returned back to Rome from Scotland. So his health was failing.
Hadrian's Wall was built in 122 AD in the on the orders of Emperor Hadrian to mark the northwestern frontier of the Roman Empire, which controlled movements and trade and defending Roman Britain from raiders. So it was sort of put there to stop anybody from trying to then raid
Get past
each other.
it, yeah.
Because it stretches right from the east coast to the west coast, pretty much. Like it's a big old chunk.
And then,
No, Patrick, you were talking about timekeeping, right?
yeah, I was because he just talked about how it was after 18 hours, and it was like, oh, it took him over 2 hours to do that 18-mile march or whatever, which was ridiculous. So
It is ridiculous. Especially because Roman was like, we have to like cut this in half or something ridiculous.
yeah, exactly, before we could wait. So I just thought I was just kind of interesting that it was just it took over 2 hours. It's like, what was he watching to watch the 2 hours slip by? Was there a particular tree that he saw the shadow move for the sundial?
Isn't he just watching the sun's position in the sky?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was one of the 3 ways that
They used to
the Romans at that time. They were really good at dividing sun position into like sections to know time. I think they had sundials. And if I remember college correctly, I think they had something like a water clock of some kind. Like, because if there's no sun, then sundials are pretty pointless. I think they could measure time by the drip of water because they learned that like water could only drip at a certain rate, and then they could convert that into time or something like that. If somebody's gonna have to fact check me on that one, I might be lying out my butt, but I remember that from university.
Wow. And then the only other thing I would have is if you picked up on the Shadow Watch, um, one of the last chapters, it just basically it was talking about the battle ahead wasn't just on the field; it was in the shadows and the games of power and manipulation that Severus and Marcellious thrived. And then a couple mentions of snakes about how this particular decision was made and the ground shook like snakes. And he basically called Marcellius a snake.
Which is true.
So
Accurate.
very
Yeah.
accurate. But I just thought, oh, that those 2 points just kind of jumped off the page. I was like, oh, here goes a mention of snakes, an honorable mention.
Yeah, I have a snake
And then
thing
the
in my one too.
and then the shadow part, you know, it was in the shadows in the games of power manipulation. So it was that in the shadows part that kind of stood out to me, at least when I read this part too. So
That that exact line really made me think of James Bond with the Daniel Craig movies. Judi Dench and the M character is really big on the fact that like we don't have enemies out in the open. Our world is even more in the shadows recently. And I read this because I wanted to ask you guys the question when we were doing Rise of the Shadow Lords. Any mention of the shadows is like almost directly connected to a Shadow Lord. Are you guys reading that this way in Timeborne, or is this just, you know, description and symbology?
I'm not sure how we're supposed to read it. Are we
I think
supposed to?
with the shadow things in the one before, it was to do with like the shadow lords, but I think it's also whenever there was a big mention of something big happening. I think it's similar in this one with the whole snakes and stuff as well. That anything that's sort of big or momentous in the thing, there is a mention quite often of the snake like movement or
yeah,
yeah.
I think the
I
first
sort
time I read it, I think the first time I read it, it was just more of a descriptive. But now that I know the Shadow Lords manipulate time and whatever's going on anyway, if you go back to the way these were published, and this being the very first one, it would not have looked that way. But after reading Shadow Lords, it literally jumped off the page at me. You know, the fact that something bigger is happening. There's something more that's being something's being manipulated. So this time it does kind of go back to, well, what's actually being manipulated? Like who is doing the manipulation? So it's just a shout out. And I think the next chapter has a shout out as well to the shadows.
I also think that there's a whole, especially in this book, like you said, since we've read the Shadow Lord book first, because this was the first book that I'd ever read. It didn't really, I didn't really notice anything before, but now I am. But I think it's quite often when there's a bit of like almost like transformation, like obviously their relationships progressing to sort of get them back to where they were, before reincarnation. That because we've talked about how snakes are like symbols of transformation and stuff like that. Whether they are a bit more like there's a bit more symbology behind it of like their transformation throughout the book, because it wasn't there wasn't that much at the beginning mentioning it. It's now more towards the end when they're starting to work out who each other are, and they're starting to work out, well, actually, I think you know who I am, and I know who you are.
slightly related question that I wanted to ask last week, but I had too much little brother energy with all the innuendo jokes last week to be serious.
Pew pew.
So last week we start seeing Marcellious and the Emperor getting cozy, and the Emperor, maybe more so we see the Emperor kind of favoring Marcellious with the Emperor's birthday party. But it's going to come up later in future readings. So I feel like right now is still an okay time to bring this up. And I think it might have something to do with all the shadows we're seeing in in Scotland. Why do we think that the Emperor favors Marcellious, given that we also read the fact that Roman seems to be better at literally everything?
Because Marcellius kisses his ass.
Is it that simple?
Maybe.
I
I
don't
think
think
he's
it
does
does,
seem
isn't
If
it?
you're a megalomaniac, you want people around you who are going to kiss your ass.
he seems to go back and forth. He seems to be really hard, and then he's all about the hose. Well, then I can do this. I'm gonna have a birthday party. You know, it's kind of strange, kind of like what Sam was saying. Throughout the whole first part of this book, there's really no mention of the shadows at all. But now that he's now been promoted above Roman, he's now trying to separate Roman and Olivia. You know, there's something going on, and it's being played out in the shadows. So now, who's doing the manipulation?
But I don't think Severus actually does like him. And the only reason I say that is because there's a line in, I think, chapter 24 when he says, "Oh, he'll agree to anything mid-orgasm." That he's had to go to the man's almost weakest point and go, "By the way, whilst you're doing that, can you just tell me if I've got the promotion or not?" Like, Marcellius knows how to play the game. And
Yeah, I don't think he
I
respects
I don't think
Marcellius.
it's necessarily I don't think it's necessarily a favoritism. I think that, you know, he knows where the weaknesses are in people. That maybe he's using it to his advantage. Maybe he knows because of, you know, bounty. But
He is darker than
I think that if you're
Roman.
having
I was trying to develop some type of theory that. So obviously, we know that Lazarus is very invested in this ancient Roman time period because he has Roman and Olivia sent back in time there, and he and Amara were there, kind of keeping Roman alive in the gladiator pits. Blah blah blah. So I can only imagine that Salvatore knows that Lazarus is invested in this time period, and I can't help but think that Salvatore is coming back to ancient Rome periodically, and right now we're seeing all these shadows, meaning he is influencing Marcellius and the Emperor, and that's why things sort of escalate through the book. That's the weird theory I'm trying to. I might be forcing it, but
I can
it
see
feels
that.
fun.
I can see that.
the shadows just happen to show up.
Roman promised to return to Olivia, but he doesn't for 2 days. And Lisa's going to tell us if the wait is worth it or not.
Well, look, let me tell you this. I love this group of chapters, but I did not go into it. I think the readers out there need to experience it for themselves. I'm not going to give any spoilers or get too into it. So, even though
So
I
to
love
speak.
it. Okay.
That's good because I don't want this
yeah.
channel to turn into Shadow Hub. That would be horrible.
Okay. Okay, so it's been 2 days since Olivia has seen Roman. He said he'd be back, and she was worried. Amara comforted her and explained that Roman was at the behest of Emperor Severus. Finally, Roman returned to her tent in only a loincloth, and after admiring his physique, Olivia acted like a petulant child, pounding on his chest and demanding to know where he'd been. Roman growled her name and told her that all he needed was her comfort and all he wanted was her. Then he grabbed her and kissed her passionately, tangling his fingers in her hair and not wanting to let go. What comes next is pages of detailed and delicious words and actions, peppered with several growly moments from Roman. Suffice to say, they have found an understanding between them. This is this is followed by intimate conversations and truth-telling between them as they lay tangled together. They talk about being Timeborns and their backstories. Roman revealed that he was born on October 17th, 1762.
Mhm.
He had a good childhood, but at 18 began to take interest in politics and wanted to join the military and fight for his country in America. He refused to let she refused to let him go, his mother. In 1780, his mother told him that he was a bastard from an affair that his mother had had with a powerful foreigner, a Turkish man, which gave Roman his bronze complexion. He didn't marry her and left her pregnant with twins. Her parents disowned her and she had to leave with Mary, her maid, to the Americas. They were taking a carriage that was headed to Philadelphia when they were attacked by a group of Kiowa natives, and his mother and Mary were taken. A Sioux tribe, with their leader, Dancing Fire, happened upon them and saved the two women. He took them back to their tribe and took care of them, fed them, clothed them, and nursed them back to health. Over a short time, Dancing Fire fell in love with Roman's mother. Meanwhile, she had gotten close to a woman in the tribe who was also pregnant. One day, Dancing Fire told Roman's mother about children born during a solar eclipse and had a power to travel through time, but it was only a folk tale. However, her babies were born on the solar eclipse, and the tribe decided that she shouldn't be able to keep two timeborns, so they gave Roman's twin to a mother who had had a stillbirth. They presented the dead baby to Roman's mother as her twin who died. They showed her the dagger that had appeared with Roman when he was born, but convinced her it would be too dangerous for her to keep. Dancing Fire loved Roman's mother like a wife and offered to marry her and take care of them. She refused because she thought of him as a savage. She's a little snotty about that. Roman's mother took him back to England, and her maid Mary stayed behind. This is why Roman's mother never wanted him to join the military and go to the colonies. Roman went away anyway, and he never saw his mother again. Throughout this entire conversation, Olivia and Roman were wrapped together intimately, growing closer. Roman continued sharing by telling her about his time fighting for the British Army in the United Colonies, with a tyrant captain who just commanded them to kill everyone. He was much like the Roman commander, with no morals and thirst for suffering. Roman was 18 and very slight and weak with no fighting skills. One night while wandering, he was attacked by a band of natives. He was saved, just like his mother had been, by Dancing Fire. Roman threatened to kill him because he was a British soldier, but was not trained, and Dancing Fire had the upper hand. Dancing Fire told Roman he looked familiar and asked if he knew Elizabeth Alexander. Roman realized that this is the man who had cared for her. Roman needed to get back to his camp, but Dancing Fire told him he would die and that he could train him instead. Roman accepted, convinced that he truly agreed that the colonies were on the right side anyway. Over the next 2 years, Roman and Dancing Fire trained together, fighting the Sioux way. One day, Dancing Fire told him that not only Roman's twin was alive, but they were both time travelers. In fact, his twin had already time traveled 6 years prior. Roman couldn't believe it, but he thought, what if? Then Dancing Fire told Roman about the darkness called Balthazar, and that he and his twin brother would have to reunite in order to destroy him. He showed Roman his dagger and told him to time travel to find his brother. Roman thought dancing fire was deluded, so he went for a walk. He stumbled upon Captain Braddock, who called him a traitor and relished in killing Roman with his rifle. Dancing fire appeared, hidden in the trees, with Roman's dagger. His aim was true, and the dagger sliced Roman's hand, and dancing fire chanted ancient words. Suddenly, Roman was in ancient Rome. Roman and Olivia were still tangled together as he told her this story. He had never shared with anyone. They were closer than ever, both physically and emotionally. But then Olivia asked why he hadn't found his twin brother yet, or time traveled again to find him. Roman was frustrated and angry. He couldn't find his brother, and he didn't know the ancient scriptures to time travel. Now they were up and pacing, both frustrated, and she didn't know the ancient scripture either, as she didn't know the ancient scriptures either. Roman comforted Olivia and told her he thought that maybe he was meant to be there so that they could find each other. Roman explained how they were born, that when they were born, a darkness was born as well, and the only way to kill it is with their dagger. Their darknesses were out there killing, and once the darkness finds them, it would start killing their loved ones. Roman's darkness had already killed Amara's husband, who had meant so much to Roman. Olivia tried to comfort him and told him, "Your burden is my burden. Your pain is my pain." Roman believed then that they were soulmates. He grabbed her and kissed her fiercely, feeling the pulse in her throat under his thumb. Olivia broke away from their kiss and told him, "We share everything now, Roman. What we gave to each other tonight, body and soul, can never be undone." They decided they needed to move forward and look to the future together, as they were bound since birth. He told Olivia he wished she knew where dancing fire was and that he was like a father to him and used to dance in the fire and rub coals on his skin. And that's how he earned his name. Then he revealed his real childhood name to Olivia, Moon Lee. Olivia and Roman realized they were destined. Olivia thought about how Roman was a war horse, so strong and brutal, with scars and tattoos, but he was also gentle and passionate, perhaps from his childhood with his mother in London. Roman asked Olivia where and when she came from. She told him about her time in 2019. They discussed how Olivia knew Moon Lee in her time, and how when her mother was killed, Moon Lee helped her father raise her and help her learn to defend herself. So both Roman and Olivia had been trained by the same man. While they were talking, they heard someone yelling, "Roman Alexander!" outside of the tent. Roman immediately put on his loincloth and sandals. So this whole
Pew
time they're
pew.
talking, they're completely in
The
love
Nikki.
and cuddling and other things that I'll let the reader enjoy themselves. He told Olivia to get dressed. It was Marcellious, and he couldn't find them like that. Roman knelt in front of Olivia, caressing her legs, and told her that she was his goddess. Marcellius kept calling out for Roman, clearly drunk. Roman told Olivia that he worshipped every part of her as he did just that. He told her that she drove him utterly mad, and then he told her, quote, "I crave every inch of you, every breath you take, every beat of your heart. I want to own it all, bury myself so deep inside you, and that nothing of you exists without me." All the while he showed her just that, and yes, as Marcellius kept bellowing his name. Olivia told her, quote, "We're bound now, lovers and allies. No one can break us apart." Roman vowed to come for her every night, literally, kissed her fiercely, and snuck out of her tent. Moments later, from a distance, he called for Marcellius, and they left together. And that's my little summary. And as you can see, I helped myself. I could help myself and not give all of the juicy details away. You really have to read them to enjoy them.
Well, Lisa, I'm going to say that I am extremely glad that you summarized this section because I just was flipping over to my notes real quick and I summarized all 3 of these chapters in exactly 5 sentences. How much
Good.
of a letdown would it have been if I read my 5 sentences and been like, okay, let's talk? Heck yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Heck yeah.
I wanted to ask something about why do you think, with there being a character named Severus, why do you think Sara chose to name one of the Shadow Lords Severin?
They're pretty
Is there any
close.
connection? Is there any? I guess they have similar evilness to them.
I'm going to go on a limb and say Severin is way more evil.
Well,
I was getting ready to
there's
say that.
nobody more evil than Severin. I know there's nobody more evil than Severin, but I'm just saying maybe she got a little, kind of from this Severus guy, a little twinkle of, hey, there should be this really totally deplorable guy named, and I'll name him Severin, similar.
That's a really good question. I'm spinning it around in my mind. And so at this point, we all know that like Sara wrote the story, like all 7, 8 books of the story down.
Mhm.
And then she started writing the first book. And I bet my hunch is that Severin existed before she started writing Timeborne. And then she was doing research, and the emperor literally at the time is just Severus. And so she shoved
Oh,
him
that's pretty
into the
cool that
book.
she just happened to, yeah.
That would be my guess. I don't know if I'm right or not. Sara, send us a DM.
Come on, hit us up.
But it is crazy how much they mirror each other, right? Because they both have this like insatiable need for sexual depravity, and they're both also using our main characters as pawns in their games. But yeah, Severin's on a whole other level. That
Oh
guy's an
yeah,
ass.
I meant in no way to diminish his depravity. Credit is due. Credit is due.
Lisa, you said that Dancing Fire told Roman that his twin brother had already time traveled. Did you say 7 years ago?
6 years ago.
6 years
6
ago.
years
So
prior.
can we all do some math? How long had Roman been living with the Sioux at this point? Was Roman 20 when Moonlee told him all of this, or was Roman still like 18?
Roman was 18 when he was with Severus, and then when he was with Braddock, and then he lived with Moonlee, Dancing Fire for 3 years being trained by him.
Yeah.
So 18, 19, 20,
21.
maybe when he was 21 or something.
So Roman time traveled when he was 21. He's 30, maybe 31, depending upon birth dates when we're reading this book. If Roman is, say, 20 when Moonlee tells him about Marcellious time traveling, that would mean that Marcellious time traveled to ancient Rome when he was 13 or 14.
I know. And why would Moonlee or Dancing Fire let him travel that young?
I don't think there was much letting.
Oh, and the other thing is that, I was wondering last time why, if Marcellius was raised by Moonlee, why was he such a little asshole? And that might be one of the reasons, because he was only raised by him for a short amount of time,
Yeah.
and he spent his formative years in
In the gladiator
Rome
pit.
as a gladiator, and or learning to be a gladiator, and probably having to really fend for himself. And he became this asshole, you know?
It really makes you feel for Marcellius because I think
Yeah.
at least I, as a reader, kind of mirrored Marcellius and Roman's experience and like going to Rome at a later age. But like if Marcellius was really there duking out his life when he was 13 years old or whatever, that's just crazy.
Exactly. God only knows what he's been
Traumatizing.
through.
I have a question for you all. I probably should have sent in our DMs days ago, but I was preoccupied with my personal life like a selfish jerk.
No, you were
so-
having fun. You deserve it.
So let me ask you this. If you all had to tell somebody from 200 AD about 2019, what would your first thought be?
At
Gonna
least we
say,
stop
was-
running around in arenas killing each other. Now we just do it everywhere.
global warming. No, feel lucky
The penguins
it's so
are melting.
cool
I know
now.
you've never seen a penguin, Mr. Gladiator, but the penguins are melting.
Well, guys, there's this thing called STDs that you don't really care about right now. Like, look, because they're not thinking about what hole they're going into, whatever they're spreading. Are you guys sure you want to be hoes? You guys sure you want to be hoes with that shit?
Well, you know what? They didn't live very long, so they didn't suffer too
Yeah.
much.
I think we know why.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Olivia
Maybe
does
someone
a good job. Olivia does a good job explaining her time, saying that there are, you know, buildings that scrape the sky, and there are vehicles, you know, like carriages, but that run on, you know, like go faster, and what else does she say? Airplane, you know, fly. They think people can fly in the sky in these vehicles that fly and called airplanes. And so they go through all that. They talk a lot of pillow talk, like you said.
A lot of pillow talk. A lot of Stola talk.
Stop.
Yeah.
But they definitely need some equal rights. They need to know about that.
Uh-huh. Women in the future.
You would
speak for
never believe
themselves,
it, but women can think things. Like,
and
how
they
would you
don't have to
explain
do
that?
what you say.
See,
No
my
means
funny thing
no.
would be like, oh, yes, but you know those things you do with them whores on the boat? Yeah, people read about it now on little black devices.
Yeah.
True that.
And women in the future can decide who and what they do.
My significant other recently read the book Yesteryear. I don't know if you guys are familiar.
Mm-mm.
It's a story about a modern day trad wife wakes up one morning back in like the mid 1800s or mid 1600s or one of those, and is forced to live the trad life that she was faking for the internet.
Ooh, wow.
Ooh.
Sounds interesting.
And so I wanted to try to explain that we have all of this technology now, but we're so disdainful of it that we're throwing it away so that we can try to live like you guys. That's how I would.
Yeah, right.
Well, the next thing we know after all of the Pew Pew and Pillow Talk, a year has gone by in Scotland.
So yeah, pretty much year in the war. There's they literally talk about that there's a lot of drunk sex going on in the camp. Hallelujah. It's all they can honestly, there's not much else to do when you get down there. It's either get healed up or go fuck a random guy in the corner, you know what I mean? So they choose they choose the latter. I think that's they choose the latter, that's the word. I don't know words sometimes. It's 6 a.m. No, it's 7 a.m. now. No, we're getting in the morning. And then, you know, Mara and Olivia having a little girls' night cuddle time. They're curling up. They're yapping. You know, they Oh, this is so funny. If you saw my notes, it looks like I'm saying that Amara and Olivia were fucking. No. I just realized because it goes. Amara and Olivia had girls' night cuddle time, and then just straight after they had depresso espresso war sex. So I love my notes. I wrote these like at such like an late time at night. So Roman and Olivia are being very friendly with each other's bodies. Let's just say, and they like it rough, fierce and feral sex in their words, specifically in Olivia's words, not mine. Olivia's fierce and feral. And they're talking about how things like that and the late night talks and stuff like that are like the reason it's keeping them alive. So I like to think that sex saves lives.
Nice.
Hashtag sex saves lives. That's what I feel like they're pretty much saying. You know,
I
you
could
guys
get
give
behind
me
that
these
one.
chapters, and I feel like I feel like I have like a standard now to keep up with whenever I do my notes, and it's just like saying the most like 20-year-old humor possible. You know, pretty much, besides all the sex, like Amara and Olivia are obviously helping healing a lot. Amara's doing like, and they do this kind of rite whenever people pass, where they place coins in their eyes and mouths to pay Karen, I don't really know how to say it, which is the ferryman of the dead for safe passage in Roman mythology. They also offer prayers to Morta, who is, I Googled these and I had like the Google searches ready to go. I lost all the Google searches. Morta is pretty much the lady of the dead, pretty much. So they're pretty much praying that those people have safe passage into the dead, which I like kind of seeing the actual, like, I guess, mythology behind stuff. I loved Percy Jackson growing up. So I love anything mythology, Greek mythology, Roman mythology. So like really fun, like this stuff really interests me, and I really want to do a deeper dive on like the mythology in Sarah's books and kind of all the hints to mythology, just because I love mythology. But no, yeah, so that's pretty much the idea, is to do that so that people have the safe passage over to the to wherever they believe they will go, which is like the overworld in mythology sort of thing. Down to, I don't know if I know like Greek has like Elysium and things like that. I'm not too sure if Roman is the same, but it's that sort of vibe where you go to kind of the good heroic place when you die. That's what they pretty much are doing.
Like Valhalla.
No, yeah. So it's like it's kind of nice. I like when authors, especially Sarah, put in the kind of religious aspect of certain parts, because like this is their whole religion. So I find it, I love whenever they actually make sure to like add sort of stuff like that in. Couple days or something goes by and Amara kind of gets Olivia into their tent all kind of secretly, and like Olivia's like, oh, like no, we're kind of fine talking out here. Everyone's like away, but she's like Amara's like, no, get the fuck in here. Got to give you some tea that you're not going to really like. And it's pretty much that Severus, our guy, has decided to order to slaughter an entire village. So all the men, women, and children, everyone in that village, gone, bye-bye, pretty much. So, and I've heard, how's that for sex saves lives, bitches? Right after that. So I don't know why I did that, but my notes are so, everyone's probably got the most ordered notes, and I've just got like points so I know what to go into it, and then it's things like that I'm like, oh, why did I write that? But anyways, Amara pretty much says, yo, we should like do something about that. And then Olivia goes, yeah. And then so they toddle on over. I said Amara's not falling to the bystander syndrome either. Amara's not hearing about it and going, yes, like anyways. Amara's running into the fields. Amara's honestly got a lot of balls, and I feel like a lot of people do. I feel like she's very underrated for that. Like, she's not underrated character, but I feel like her kind of push to do things is very underrated. Because I think at the end of the day, a lot of people do kind of see her as a healer, but like, no, she also takes action.
Yes.
For better or for worse. I don't know why we always give me the Amara scenes that don't end up quite well, but so they pretty much, yeah. So Amara and Olivia are teaming up. They're running to the village. They're speeding out of the camp. I didn't really talk too much about how they described it, but I loved when they were kind of like traveling to the village And then they kind of just had a whole section where they just described the surroundings. They were talking about how pretty waterfalls all are and everything like that. And I believe it's Olivia pretty much says, yeah, how can a world so beautiful exist alongside such cruelty? And I find that so like very just accurate, because I also do appreciate that they're like going to like save this village and things like that, but at the same time they can still appreciate the beauty of the world they're in. And I feel like that's very important. And then through the beautiful world, they find smoke because they were unfortunately too late. They'd already started raiding the village. There's a woman that pretty much screams at them to get out, and like Amara's like, no, we're here to help. Amara tells like this like you little boy kind of thing. She's like kind of like, you're the man of the house now. Like, do you have a favorite place that you like to hide? Take your family there, take your mother there. Like, you're the man of the house now. You your job to protect your little family, to try and get them out. I like to think that family is living happily right after this, and have had a beautiful life after. Because if we don't know what happens to them, they've lived. Okay, they have lived. So he took them to the most beautiful hiding spot, and they lived a beautiful. They lived like 90 years. They lived longer than the
Boom.
lifespan. You know.
Hell yeah.
But no. So then there's literally just bodies everywhere, and then they hear this woman kind of scream for help because she's in labor, which Amara, the midwife she is, the healer that she is immediately like, no, we need to help her. Like, Amara's like, I can't leave her. Not happening. So Amara's pretty much so then they just have this whole section where they're helping, they're getting like the water, they're getting like a cloth, and Amara's getting ready to deliver this baby and making pretty much an impromptu home birth, which good on her. But then one of the worst things happen, of course. During all this, Olivia's beautiful darkness appears. It's there. It's pretty much spitting on her. It's mentioning Balthazar again as well. Kind of mentioning, like, we still, like, I find it quite interesting because we don't fully know who Balthazar is at this time, but then we just kind of hear the whispers of him. And it's kind of like, because I like Balthazar as like the books go on, which people will find out why when we get to the other books. But I really like how mysterious he was at this time, because I was kind of like terrified of who this man would become when the darkness was talking about. Like, what do you mean you're like the darkness is on his side? What do you mean like the darkness has pretty much said, yeah, you got to go kill her? Like, well, that's the stuff. And then we officially, I guess, find out that the darkness that's after Olivia is her own, like officially this chapter, because it literally says, I am your darkness, Olivia. It's fully confirmed now. And then we also find out that the darkness believes, and this probably is true, that killing its Timeborne, so if the darkness kills Olivia, it will get eternal life. Until then, like, it's got still a time limit. It's still like mortal in some way, shape, or form. And then, why do we give me these chapters? Did it in the last book, did it in this one. Amara bursts out saying that the mother and child unfortunately did not survive. And then, yeah, I literally wrote, now why are we giving me both of Amara's fucking death scenes? Both books, I have had to go through this shit again. Great. And I wrote, my God, bitches. So I don't know if that's towards you. I don't know if that's towards Sarah. I don't know if that's just towards the book. I didn't even choose my chapter. So
maybe you should.
I forget, like, look here, I forget the order of the chapters. So unless we wrote Amara death, I would not have known.
That's true. That's true.
Because I know the gist, I know kind of the timeline of everything that happens, but I low-key don't remember the order. But anyways, Amara then gets fucking stabbed, of course, because she has to. Because of course she has to. At least it wasn't her neck this time. At least they switched up the way, you know? And then bye-bye Amara. But I think Amara has a lot of valuable things to say in a tiny bit of time left. I think it's very sad, but she says that she can see them. I can see them, my daughter and my husband. And so she's seeing Lazarus. And I wonder if she sees like Lazarus as a whole, like actual Lazarus, or if she sees like his own kind of like ruffian. Lazarus. You know what I mean? Like from that time that she knew him. I like to think as well that when Amara dies, she gets whatever memory she didn't have from her other life, she gets back. And so I like to think that that's kind of how all that went. And then she got to live like 2 lives at least. I feel like if you combine both of her lives, she's lived a pretty awful long lifespan. If you compare both of them, like she lived pretty old in this one, which was nice. She was like our favorite grandmother. But then, yeah, she says a lot of things about like, promise me you'll stay with Roman, and then you were destined to be together in this lifetime, and then you have a great destiny ahead of you. Those are 3 key things that she says in the death, which I think win woman of the year, but at the same time, it really does show her the kind of destiny with that. And like, it kind of shows, I guess, what we're going to see them all become. And then I said, though, Olivia, let Amara speak because girl had so much stuff to say. And Olivia was just like, obviously, well, I mean, fair enough. But Olivia was just like, no, don't die. No, you're not going to leave me. And Amara's here trying to spit facts. Amara's here trying to spit her last facts. And then Olivia's like, oh my God, no, don't die. No. And Amara's like, shut the fuck up. Let me tell you, you've got destiny, bitch. And but then at the end of the chapter, we know what's going to happen. Bye-bye, Amara, officially. Dead. She's dead. We don't see her ever again. Well, no, no, that's not right, technically. But then Olivia now, like, she hated the darkness. She fucking hates the darkness now. She's, like, done with everything now. This was, like, the final straw of it. And then that's pretty much how the chapter ends. I didn't really, like, prepare too many questions, but, like, what do we think? Like, yeah, thoughts, feelings, like, opinions, especially about, like, kind of, I guess, Amara's, like, I know exactly what's gonna fucking happen to you, and you need to stay with Roman vibes.
Yeah, I'm glad she said that. Thank you. Well, it was interesting that both times she died, it was by stabbing by a knife, a blade.
Mhm.
And it was terrible. But Roman did tell, in my chapters, Roman did tell Olivia that their darknesses were always out there killing people, and as soon as their darknesses found them, they would start killing people whom they loved. So, of course, the darkness killed Amara because Olivia loved her.
I'm with you, Tam. You were talking about how interesting and ominous Balthazar seems in this chapter.
Mhm.
And now that we have the whole context and hindsight of the rest of the series, I couldn't help but read this chapter as like an example of how messed up the world that Solaris created is. Because like the darknesses are only darknesses in this world, but like back in Solaris, they're Shadowborns and they're protectors of the Timeborns. And so like they've been completely and utterly twisted and messed up. And like when you meet Roman's darkness and now you meet Olivia's darkness, they're like shadows that are solid and then they're gaseous and they move but when you meet Balthazar in book 1, he's just like this solid evil man. And so you get this weird idea that like he's different than the darknesses because he has a name. He's not just a darkness. And
Right.
that's always very fascinating to me. And then I think the other thing that really stands out to me is what Amara's talking about that you mentioned, that she can see Lazarus and her daughter. First of all, I think we learn, oh boy, I might stick my foot in my mouth here. I don't know if we learned this in future books or if this is a conversation I had on the side with Sara. When Timeborns or darknesses or whatever, if you are from Solaris originally or whatever, I think if you die in our world, you just go back to Solaris. And you're like, you wait.
Like your
So
spawn
if
form.
Amara talking about how she can see Lazarus and Theodora, is she like able to see like some crossover to Solaris, like kind of a thing?
Oh, maybe.
Or is Tam right? Is Tam like you were talking about, like, is it just like chemical reactions with the brain shutting down, and so she's just seeing her big stud muffin of a honey when he came home from war?
Why now is Balthazar and that coming? Because Olivia's been in ancient Rome for what, like 2 years? Or like the best part of 2 years? Because she's, well, I say ancient Rome.
Mm.
She was in Scotland for a year, and then prior to that, it said 6 months and then a couple of months and stuff. So in theory, it's somewhere like in the 2-year mark. So in that whole time, what have they been doing if they're trying to find her? Like, why is it taking them 2 years? And also, why is it just after she's told Roman, or Roman's told her that he's essentially a Timeborne too, that their darknesses are now appearing?
He talked
Has it
about
been 2
coming there
years? So, let me rephrase that. Yes, it has been 2 years narratively in this book as we've read it. But if we are over in the darkness's point of view, has it been 2 years from that? Like, if they are time travelers and they're hopping from time to time to time, and you can only do that once a month, one, has it been 2 years for them? I don't know what I'm trying to say. I'm probably not
No,
trying to say
No, I
anything.
know
get it.
I
I
know what
get
you're
it.
talking about.
Yeah.
Because like
Yeah.
that the one of the TV shows I watch, their time travel thing is that the amount of time that they spend in one time equals to the amount of time back in their own time. So if you're in ancient Rome for 12 hours, 12 hours has passed like in your home. But then other shows, it could be like 7 months and it's actually like 7 years. Like, so you've been in ancient Rome
Like
for
The Way
7 years,
Home.
but it's only 7, yeah, but it's only like 7 months. So, you know, or in like this time, could it be that they've literally only been, like, she's only literally been gone a day, and in her time in ancient Rome, you know, it's nearly 2 years it's passed.
Also, darknesses. Like, let's talk about being a darkness. As I understand it, a darkness is literally like a human with like 5% shadows in their blood that allows them to do crazy stuff. Does that jive with everybody else?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so if it took Olivia 24 years to learn that she's a time traveler and to time travel for the first time, when does Olivia's darkness learn how to time travel for the first time? And was that 2 years some type of learning curve to even learn how to time travel or control the shadow powers before they can act?
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Or does the darkness just like, they're 6 months old and they're like, I be dark, yo. I know how to do this stuff. And so they just really messed up for 26 years and they had no idea what they were doing.
Also, though, do they, when you say obviously the darkness is born, do you think it like literally means like from a child state, or do you reckon that they're born straight into the adult state? Like, if they're born with them, are they born as babies, or are they born as like manifestations of people, and then they've just been given, you know, the 26 years in adult form to learn and hone their skills? Because otherwise, then who's looking after these dark babies?
And the little bit that I've asked Sarah about this, I think the darkness is trapped inside the blade. And once they actually do their first
The knife.
once they do their first travel, that is when the darkness is released. Quote unquote shadowborn. at that point, Matt. So because that was one of the questions I had early on, so I could try to understand a little bit more of the darkness itself. So I think whatever age the time traveler jumps, that's the age of the darkness. So, and then whether or not they actually take time to learn how to kill or how to use the powers of the darkness, that I haven't really even thought about, because in my mind they just come out, okay, I'm ready to kill, because they already know what their mission is.
Yeah, it's in their
So,
nature.
Mm.
Yeah.
but how
I
to?
don't think it is in their nature,
No? But they're darknesses.
but not back in Solaris.
Oh,
Like
right.
originally they were protectors of the Timeborne. So like you would have to imagine that, okay, and in this case, Olivia's darkness, whose name I can't remember. I know we get a name in like the second book.
I'm
But
I'm trying to find
she
it.
comes out when she's 24, and then we don't see her for nearly 2 years. So in that 2 years, Balthazar must have found her and recruited her and put her in his like tutelage, right?
Mhm.
Sort of like Balthazar was in school with Matthias.
Mm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think so, because I remember, I think it's in Time Bound, I think, is where Olivia's darkness and Balthazar like have conversations, and then in front of Olivia. So
Yeah.
I think, again, all these names and connections are
Yeah.
mind-boggling.
Mm.
But I am trying to find her name.
So I'm now thinking of Olivia's darkness as like a baby elephant. So 24 years old when it comes out of the dagger. It's a big baby, and it needs that 18 to 20 months to learn how to walk and be evil.
Well, it's Roman tells Olivia that when the darknesses are born, they just are killing people. And then once they find them, they start killing people they love. So all along, they've been killing people, random people. But then when they find their person, they start killing those the person loves.
But is that
But
just to
they're
feed their
always
shadow?
killing people.
Because
I think that's
If-
an unreliable narration, though.
Well, that's what Roman says. I don't know.
Here's my question for everybody, and I'm going to force Tam to answer first.
Oh, great. What is it?
You're welcome. Between Amara's death scene in Rise of the Shadow Lords and Amara's death scene in Timeborne, which one hit you in the feels more, and why?
Oh, I know my answer.
Ugh.
mine is this one.
Yeah. I'd
Mine
say
is this-
yeah. Well,
Mine
because
is this one because
you go.
it's I think I don't know whether it's just me, but I think throughout the whole of the whole book of Rise of the Shadows, it was almost like law that Amara was gonna die, or at least from my point of view. The whole time
Yeah.
it was like, no, she's taking you from me. Da, 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 da. Like there was multiple points throughout the book that suggested she's gonna die at the end. This one almost came out of fucking nowhere. Quite literally, like
Yeah.
she's literally gone in, she's delivered a baby, she's walked out, she's like, nope, they both died, and then all of a sudden just KO'd. Like I think
KO'd.
for me,
Mhm.
for me, this was
I
a hard.
I can see that because when I read this as book one, when I read this the first time through, it was a shock that Amara died. It was like
Mhm.
heartbreakingly horrible. Like, why, Sara? Why? But then when I read the the origin story, that hit me really hard too. Even though it was foretold, just the way she died, the way she was like standing there, and you thought, "Oh, there she is," and then here comes from the sidelines Salvatore right away, and just bam, it's done. So I think both were very jarring, but yeah, my first read, this was more like out of nowhere.
You see, I just kind of base it off which one I actually properly cried over. I properly cried off over this one because, like, kind of like Sam said, it kind of, I guess, made sense for her to die in Rise of the Shadow Lords versus in this one, like, especially when I did the reread. Like, obviously we all know when you do like the reread, she's gonna die again, but it's kind of like you really just wish she didn't because you've already seen her die, and so this book I think will always hit harder no matter like whether it's like the first time or like continuously on because of that.
Well, because I read the origin story as number one the first time also, then I was not surprised when it happened in this one. So, but so I think it was the origin that hit me the hardest, obviously, because it was Salvatore who did it. So, and for me, it was like, oh no, you idiot, we're gonna have big words about this. And then,
Yeah,
reading
boy.
this again, then this time it was like, oh, here it comes. But I also thought that the first time I was just sitting there like, oh, hi, Amara. Okay, how many pages are we gonna have you this time? I was thinking that the whole way through.
Oh wow.
So, and this time I was just like, oh my God, this again. Not that it's not like I don't care about Amara, but it's like, oh, I'm feeling so much different now because I'm like, okay, she's gonna come back. Maybe not maybe we're not seeing it, maybe we are. Well, can wait and see. But I'm like, every time she dies, she will be back. Don't worry, she will be back.
I think this one actually hit me a little bit more harder, basically because in this book, not to say that she was not involved in Shadow Lords, but she seemed to be more involved in general health, general helping of more than just Lazarus and Salvatore. So I think this one, it was more of a loss for me at this time around, just because I felt like she was more involved in the story.
Y'all be fascinating. I thought the easy answer was Shadow Lords was more impactful.
Yeah, the way she died
But-
was horrific.
But listening to you guys talk, I was trying to like, why do I think Rise of the Shadow Lords is the more horrendous death scene? I think maybe it's not because they're you guys have both all said it. They're both out of the blue. You don't really see it coming necessarily. Like she might die, but you don't see it coming. But I think the reason I think Rise of the Shadow Lords is harder to stomach for me is because it's whose eyes are narrating the death. And in this book, it's like you're watching a friend who's like a grandma get killed. But when I read Rise of the Shadow Lords, I can only envision my wife being killed in front of me. And I think that's
Right.
just so much harder for me to even try to fathom.
Right.
True to his word, Roman tries to come for Olivia that night, but she's not in her tent. And she's not with Amara in the healing tent. In fact, they're nowhere to be found. So Roman, it's like, I still got to come for Olivia.
Yes. Well, after he, surprise, he clashes with Marcellious, who saw that one coming. Then he's like, okay, I gotta find her. So he finds the soldier and like, okay, you're gonna tell me where is she? And he's like, no, I'm not telling you. But of course, Roman gets it out of him. He's like, they went to the west. Well, why didn't you stop them? Well, I didn't know I was supposed to. Yeah, and Roman is not very happy. So, but well, I understand this guy. It must be difficult. Who do you have to say yes to? Who do you have to say no to? What to do? Yeah. So he rides to the village and he searches and searches and he can't really find Olivia anywhere. But then as dawn creeps onto the horizon, he's like, "Oh, is that her?" And she's sitting there holding Amara's body, and he's like, "Oh no, what's going on?" He can already feel that, okay, something is completely wrong. Actually, he feels it before seeing that she has Amara and holding her. So yeah, that's very sad. I won't go into too much detail about that because I also love Amara and I don't want to be thinking too much about that. So yeah, they cry and they're both heartbroken, and who wouldn't be? So Roman's like, okay, we have to give Amara a proper send off. We can't just leave her here. So they find a cloak and wraps her and makes a pyre and yeah, doing a thing with the 3 coins, one on each eye and one on the mouth. So she has the money for the ferryman when she gets to the underworld.
Oh.
So yeah, and this I think it was so beautifully written, but that's just Sara for you. So of course. Yeah, and then Roman and Olivia, they just they stand there looking at the fire. They speak to Amara, tells her thank you, and we miss you, we love you, we'll never forget you. They're just grateful, and it was kind of yeah, bittersweet. I think is the only word I have to describe this. And they stay there until it's just nothing but embers, and then they have to go back, of course, because yeah, well, there's still war going on, still stuff going on, and yeah, of course they're gonna meet Marcellious again. So yeah, hooray, very happy about this. And he's like, oh my god, you're shirking your responsibility. He's like, oh, I can go tell on someone. I'm like, oh my god. And Roman just freaks out, of course, who wouldn't? And he's like, but Amara died, we laid her soul to rest. And then Marcellius just deflates and leaves without another word. So apparently there is still something human left in him. And then they go to Olivia's tent, and Roman gets to hear everything what happened with Amara's death. And I won't tell you about this because no need to rehash this. So yeah, they also actually start to discuss time traveling again, and if Olivia's mother is actually a time traveler, and Olivia just doesn't want her to be. And then, well, this time it's Roman being the very adult one and then storming off. And I actually didn't have very much for this chapter because we just spoke about all of it in the chapter before.
Why did he storm off in this chapter again?
I think he didn't want to hear Olivia blaming herself anymore for Amara's death, as I understand it.
Oh,
She was
right.
like, it was my fault, I'm sorry, it's my fault. And of course, it hurts him to hear her say that. And I think he's also like, no, it was my fault, I should have done something. So everyone blaming themselves and everyone being adults, yeah.
I can totally relate with that. Why I know my Elizabeth and I are both very like type A, self-sufficient type people, and we always take responsibility, and when we get into our stupid petty arguments, she's always like, oh, it's probably my fault, and then I get mad at her that she's having her little pity. Like, I can totally understand Roman here.
Yeah.
Just like, stop blaming yourself, stop it.
I actually have it with my friends because I'm very good at blaming myself for stuff. And then my bestie, she tells me, why are you blaming this on my bestie? And then I'm like, okay, I have no argument for this. If you put it like that. So, yeah. But I thought it was actually, it was so normal that it was Roman storming off this time. I think we kind of needed it because, well, their relationship clearly is working because they're being human beings.
I did think the scene where Roman like essentially picks Marcellius up by the neck, and he was like, shut the F up, you jerk. That was such a badass. Like, do you know how strong you have to be? Wow.
That's why Olivia calls him a warhorse.
Like,
Well, that's one reason.
my wife is like 5'1.5". She be small. I don't think I could grab her by the neck and lift her. And from everything we know, I think Marcellious is bigger than Roman. And yet
Yeah.
Roman's just like
You chill with it.
crazy awesome.
Strong willpower.
Do we think that's like because they're Amir's kids? Do they have? We know Marcellious has some shadow in him. Do we think Roman has some shadow in him? Is Roman able to pick Marcellious up by the neck because he's got some of that shadow strength?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe. Maybe just lots of adrenaline.
There's something to be said for the mom that like can pick up a minivan to save her child. That kind of adrenaline.
That's right.
Yeah. Don't mess with a mama bear. You will lose.
Oh,
Yep.
every time.
We started this chapter with Olivia in the fetal position next to Amara. And we start the next chapter after Roman storms out of her tent with Olivia in the fetal position again.
Yep. So this chapter is essentially an emotional roller coaster that everybody's forgotten to strap their seatbelts in. So Olivia's drowning in grief after Amara's death and is reeling from Roman's angry outburst that she's convinced she's lost everybody that she's ever loved. Pity party for one. As she spirals into heartbreak, guilt, and an existential questions about time travel, her destiny, and her mother's mysterious past, she then sinks into a near catatonic state. Roman eventually returns, realizing that he handled his grief badly, and literally drags Olivia back into the land of the living with an ice-cold stream dunk. At that, and a heartfelt apology. Together, they agree to stop pushing each other away and face their challenge as a team. Just when hope starts to flicker again with news that they are returning to Rome and may have a chance to search for the sacred scriptures, the chapter ends with a little bit of a sinister twist. Marcellius has been eavesdropping outside the tent, like the world's creepiest peeping Tom. He's just overheard enough to become a dangerous threat as well. So my question is, if you were Marcellius and you'd overheard all of this, what would your next step be? Because he obviously knows about time travel. He obviously knows because he's done it. But like, how would you go about? How would you go about with the information? What would you do?
Well, if I was a normal person, I mean, if I was Marcellius, I don't know, but normal person, I would ask them about it and say, how is this, who are you and how are you a time traveler? And I mean, what a coincidence that there's 3 time travelers in the same location. But if I was Marcellius, I would try to figure out a way to use it against them, a vulnerable way to, you know.
I had 2 immediate gut reactions to your question. The first one is that Step Brothers, the movie, came into my head, and I'd be like, "Are we best friends now?" Because we're both time travelers. But then
Best friends.
I thought about myself, and I'd just be like, absolutely nothing. I would do absolutely nothing with that information. I'd go to sleep. It was late at night.
When you had the Step Brothers thing, my immediate response was earlier when you were talking about boats and hose. I really wanted to say, I was like, boats and hose. The information that Marcellius is found out now. I think this is where he starts to go in a bit of a downward spiral because he starts going a bit weird.
Oh, like the whole, like he'd almost
Like-
forgotten about the time travel thing, and like this like unlocks some weird traumatic core memory of his or something.
Yeah, well, sort of, because like then he starts going on about obviously. Well, it's all the next week's the next week's chapters, but he starts to go a bit weird from this point onwards with them. Like, obviously, he's got his back up a bit about Roman and Olivia because of, like, you know, everything in the last, you know, whatever 10 years that they've been sort of like around each other. But I think that from him hearing this information, he starts to go a bit like he starts to change.
I think one of my thoughts would be not really to do nothing with it because it's late, but I think it'd be something that, let me make sure I hold on to this information. Like, where can I, what can I glean from this? Where can I use this in the future? I think for me with that particular question, I think it would be more of a, I'm glad I know this information, but I don't know exactly what I want to do with it yet.
Like, keep it as a bargaining chip, or like not a bargaining chip, but like
Yeah.
Blackmail.
Yeah.
Here's a question for the ladies on the stream this evening. There are a few things that life has taught me are a certainty, and one of those things is that if you dunk a woman in water against her will, you're in deep crap. So I want to know from all of you, if you are kind of in a stupor in the fetal position and a man picks you up and goes and dunks you in a river, are you going to think that's a romantic thing, or are you going to get real mad at him?
I'm going feral.
I'm gonna get
Oh, yeah.
I'm gonna get really
What?
pissed because I mean I know he's trying to shock her out of it, but what he could have done is just like held her in his arms or whatever, and let her. But yeah, that was a little bit dramatic and extra.
No, I'd go feral, scratching eyeballs, kicking peepees.
I think I would definitely try to repay the favor.
Repay the favor.
Mm-hmm.
Tam, those rivers in Australia seem more dangerous. The ones are up here. How would you be with being dunked in a river?
I'd probably get fucking diseases. So I'd make them pay for my bloody medical bills. I'd get... They like... Because I'm not from Sydney. I'm from like a country town. And some of those rivers are like feral. Like... awful. And I'm like, if I got dunked in there, I would come up with 20 different diseases and probably an STD. Like...
Wow.
Oh, that's a fate worse than death, honestly.
Okay, so here's a callback for you, Tam. What do you think would be worse health-wise? Being a hoe on the ship ride to Scotland or being dunked in your hometown river?
The river. The river, 100% the river.
Oh, see, I would have gone like 50-50.
No, the river.
Wow.
The river's probably got
getting-
more than just one STD.
That's
Am I
quite a
getting
river.
syphilis or am I getting dysentery? Like,
You're getting both in that river, you know?
You're going to get dunked in a river and come out with a lack of vitamin C. I think that's what I just heard.
You're probably gonna have to cut like this bit out because so warning for editing Matt, but there's literally like this river in my hometown where like if I texted my mom right now and said, bro, what would you think would happen if I jumped in that river? That woman's reaction would be like, oh, it's so bad. Maybe okay, you can start putting this back in, but like maybe the farm rivers would be fine. You'd probably get something, but I feel like I'd rather be a hoe over the hoe if it was like just like a farm river. But like,
Well, internet,
it's
you
like-
heard it
it's-
here first. Tam would rather be an ancient Roman prostitute than go swimming in her hometown river.
my boyfriend sees this and he goes, "What the fuck?"
I don't know if I necessarily agree with that assessment, but I will trust your judgment.
Hey, he knows
At the
about
very least, you'd have more money, I suppose.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like they wouldn't pay them though in the Roman times. So
No,
you'd be locked out a bit in the Roman times.
definitely
but yeah.
quantity over quality back then. If you need to
Yeah.
pay the bills. And I suppose with that, our story comes to a pause as Roman lets Olivia know that they're going back to Rome tomorrow morning.
Yay.
And for now, the archives are closed. Thank you all for listening, and we will see you next week when we finish Timeborne with chapters 32 through 37.
Woo.
Cheers.